The spark. The grand hall of the Galactic Concord shimmered with starlight filtered through its crystalline dome. Representatives from 100 species filled the tiers of the chamber, their voices a low chorus of irritation. At the center stood the delegation of the Thak Dominion, scales glittering under the light, their crimson eyes fixed on the subject of the day, humanity. "They expand without restraint," hissed the Thak High Marshal. "Every cycle, another colony carved into systems too near our borders. They are a pest species, tolerated far too long." Murmurs of agreement rippled across the chamber. Humans were newcomers, barely a century into starflight. Their ships were clumsy, their fleets laughably small compared to the war machines of the Concord. And yet, in a single lifetime, they had spread across half a dozen frontier worlds, stubbornly digging their roots into any place they touched. "They will bend to Concord law," another ambassador declared, mandibles clacking, "or they will be reminded of their place." From a corner platform, the lone human envoy rose. Governor Elias Heron, stiff suit, tired eyes, stood dwarfed by beings twice his size. His voice, though steady, carried none of the menace of the Thak. "Humanity is not your enemy," he said. "We ask only to live, to grow, to find our place among the stars. But we will not surrender our colonies. New Horizon is ours. Its people will not be displaced." The chamber erupted with laughter, clicks, and growls. To the Concord, his words sounded like a hatchling snarling at predators. The High Marshal of the Thak leaned forward, scales catching the light. "Then hear this, primate, surrender the world of New Horizon, or watch it burn. Let this be the last time you mistake tolerance for weakness." Elias did not flinch, though his heart thundered in his chest. "Then let this be the last time you mistake humanity for prey." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. The Concord had expected defiance, yes, but not with such calm certainty. To them, humans were fragile things, soft-bodied, short-lived, untested. They could not possibly mean to resist. But the order had already gone out. The Dominion fleet turned its course toward New Horizon. And the galaxy leaned forward, eager to witness humanity's first and final lesson. Fire and fury. The sky above New Horizon split with fire. From the surface, settlers looked up in silence as the Thak fleet descended like a storm. Dark, blade-shaped warships cut through the clouds, their engines trailing lightning and heat. The invasion was not subtle, it was meant to terrify. Governor Elias Heron stood in the command bunker, listening to the reports stream in. Orbital bombardment commencing. Civilian shelters sealed. Defense grid failing. The voices were steady, professional, but behind them he heard the fear. The Dominion had brought more ships than New Horizon had ever dreamed of facing. Dreadnoughts, destroyers, carriers, an armada designed to erase a colony in hours. Against them, humanity had a patchwork defense, a few retrofitted freighters armed with scavenged cannons, ground-to-orbit missile silos, and men and women with rifles in their hands. The Thak High Marshal had expected surrender. Instead, the first wave of invaders met a barrage of missiles streaking upward from the surface. A Dominion frigate erupted into a ball of fire. Another spiraled out of formation, its hull shredded by shrapnel. The galaxy watched the broadcast with disbelief. Primitive humans, who barely understood interstellar war, had drawn first blood. On the ground, Colonel Vance led his battalion into the burning streets. "Remember," he barked over comms, "they think we'll break. Show them what breaking looks like." His soldiers laughed, grim and fierce, before charging into the smoke. The Thak advanced with precision, their formations tight, their weapons devastating. But humans fought like nothing they had ever seen. They struck from collapsed buildings, from tunnels, from sewers. They hacked enemy drones with repurposed mining equipment. When ammunition ran dry, they used knives, fire, and bare fists. And when a Dominion dreadnought dipped low over the city to unleash its cannons, 3 human pilots flew jury-rigged freighters straight into its hull, detonating their engines in a blinding chain reaction. The ship cracked apart and fell from the sky, crushing its own soldiers below. Billions across the galaxy gasped. The Thak had promised an execution. Instead, they were bleeding. Governor Heron watched the burning wreckage light the horizon. His voice carried over the emergency broadcast, firm and unyielding. "Humanity does not kneel. Not today. Not ever." And for the first time, the galaxy began to wonder if these fragile creatures were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The price of threats. The Dominion expected swift victory. Instead, their fleet bled in orbit while smoke from burning ships painted New Horizon skies. What had been planned as a demonstration of dominance had become a spectacle of resistance, one broadcast across the entire Concord. In the chamber of the Grand Hall, silence reigned as the war feeds poured in. Species who had mocked humanity now watched in uneasy fascination. They saw soldiers fighting long after their wounds should have ended them. They saw civilians, miners, farmers, engineers, arming themselves and joining the battle. They saw suicide runs carried out not in despair, but in grim determination. To many alien eyes, it was madness. To others, it was terror. On New Horizon, Colonel Vance wiped blood from his face as he surveyed the battlefield. "They thought we'd scatter," he muttered. Around him, his soldiers were already salvaging THAC weapons from fallen troops, stripping armor, learning on the fly. Humans adapted with reckless speed. Within hours, captured plasma rifles were firing from human barricades, jury-rigged with wires and battery packs. In orbit, the Dominion tried to regroup. Their commander spat in fury as another cruiser limped out of formation, engines crippled by a mining laser turned orbital cannon. "These primitives fight without honor," he snarled. "They know nothing of proper war." But the lesson was sinking in. Humans fought wars differently. They turned everything into a weapon, from asteroid slingshot into ships, to power plants overloaded into traps, to propaganda broadcasts that mocked the Dominion across every channel. Governor Heron's face filled screens throughout the Concord, his voice steady despite the chaos behind him. "We do not seek conquest. We do not seek war. But when you bring fire to our homes, when you threaten our families, understand this: humanity does not yield. Every drop of blood spilled only makes us fight harder." The speech spread faster than the war itself. Some species shuddered at the words. Others began to whisper, "Perhaps the Concord has misjudged these humans." Above the colony, the Dominion fleet prepared another assault. Their pride demanded victory. Their fear whispered retreat. And across the galaxy, a realization took root. The cost of threatening humans was far greater than anyone had imagined. The lesson. The battle for New Horizon ended in silence. The Dominion fleet, once so vast it blotted out the stars, now drifted as broken wreckage across orbit. Fires burned in the upper atmosphere as shattered dreadnoughts fell like meteors, their remains scattering across the deserts and oceans below. On the ground, soldiers staggered through the ruins, exhausted, bloodied, but unbowed. Against all predictions, humanity still stood. The feeds that had begun as a broadcast of punishment had become a chronicle of survival. Billions across the Concord had watched the impossible unfold, a young, fragile species defying one of the galaxy's great powers, and winning. In the command chamber of a damaged carrier, the THAC High Marshal sat in chains, glaring at the human guards. When Governor Heron entered, the alien bared his teeth. "You cannot win forever," the Marshal hissed. "Your kind is weak. You are short-lived, brittle things. Another fleet will come, and it will burn you to ash." Heron studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but cutting. "Maybe we are fragile. Maybe we don't live as long as you. But when you threaten us, when you threaten our families, you awaken something you don't understand. We don't break. We bite." The Marshal fell silent. For the first time, he understood that the human's fragility was not weakness, it was fury distilled into strength. Across the galaxy, the echoes spread. Species that had once dismissed humans now whispered in fear and respect. Pirates reconsidered raiding human colonies. Concord generals began revising their strategies, adding one line to every briefing: never corner a human. On New Horizon, survivors raised the battered human flag over the ruins of the capital. Soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder with civilians, their shadows long in the dawn light. The colony was scarred, but alive. Governor Heron's closing broadcast carried not only to his people, but to every world that had watched. "Remember this day. We are not conquerors. We are not aggressors. But we are human. And now you know what happens when you threaten us." The stars seemed to listen. And from that day forward, the galaxy never forgot the lesson. The day it discovered why you don't threaten humans.